A very good evening to everyone. So today we are going to start with our third session, that is nurses role during pandemic, that is during COVID-19 in children. So today we know that 60 to 70% of children are got infected and admitted during second wave. With the prediction of this, we are expecting that third wave will be mostly it will affect the children. For that, we need to prepare ourselves during this one hospital settings as well as nurses everything. Unfortunately, we have shortage of pediatric nurses at present. So as the need of that to train the nurses, we are going to conduct session on nurses role during COVID-19 pandemic in children. So today's session will be starting with our um, Dr. Radha Imit, HOD of Children's Nursing, Ramaya Institute of Nursing Education and Research. Ma'am holds a PhD in nursing, and then ma'am has 21 years of experience in teaching nursing field. Ma'am has 11 publication national and international level in her credits. We welcome you, ma'am, for this session.
Yeah, thank you, Lata. First of all, I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Sonali Jadhav, for giving me this opportunity. Objectives of this session would be like by the end of the session, participants understands the key concerns in nursing care of pediatric COVID-19 infection. They'll be able to analyze the level of preparedness required to take care of these children, and also will be able to initiate and adopt appropriate roles. Like as Lata said, in the first wave of COVID-19, 4% of the children were affected. And in the second wave, it was reported 10 to 15% were affected, and only 4% of children among them had severe illness. So this indicates that much concentration was not given to the management of children. But now, with the speculation of possible third wave, it is important for us to get prepared to prevent this infection in children, and also to provide curative services for children. And this infection is expected to be more damaging to the health and development as well as welfare of the children of all age groups, which summons for immediate action. And it also calls for vigorous and meticulous nursing care strategies to protect our young generation, which are who will be our world's future. And when coming to the nursing care as such, as of now, it is comprised of supportive and symptomatic care based on the condition of the patient. Let us see what exactly our role or what nursing care that we can provide to the children with this COVID-19 infection. This COVID-19 infection in children can be classified as mild, moderate, and severe depending on the symptoms and the severity of these symptoms. And then the first is like mild cases. In the mild cases, symptoms are fever, sore throat, rhinorrhea, cough, diarrhea, vomiting, and no fast breathing. So if the children are presenting with these symptoms, there is no need for hospitalization. They'll be managed at home. If at all, if the child is having any comorbidities along with these symptoms like chronic kidney disease, congenital heart disease, chronic liver disease, or neurodisability, morbid obesity, malnutrition, malignancy, or immunocompromised state, or diabetes, and in these conditions also, the protocol says that if they are having any near access to health facilities, no need for hospitalization, they can be managed at home. If there is no nearby health access, a healthcare facility for them, then that kind of children need to be hospitalized. If at all the child is there at home, here like few guidelines we have quoted for the parents to carry out in the home when the child is at home isolation. So child should be isolated with parents even if parents are COVID negative unless the parent is high risk. And child should be kept in a separate room with attached toilet, and it should be well ventilated with cross ventilation. And if parents are positive, the children should be isolated with them even if children are asymptomatic and primary contacts. And they should not be sent to the grandparents' house or anybody else's house because they could be the virus carriers. And both parent and child should wear triple-layered mask at all times. And like according to WHO, if the child is below 2 years, there is no need for the child. We cannot force the child to wear the mask because there is chance of suffocation. Then at home, we can advise the parents to monitor the following forthrightly and maintain a chart or a diary of a record of all these things. That is temperature by using digital thermometer, then oxygen saturation by using pulse oximeter. It's handheld pulse oximeter of pediatric size. Then respiration here we should tell them they should record when the child is not crying and when the child is resting. Okay, then fluid intake, they have to record how much of fluid the child has taken, and the activity level of the child they should observe and monitor. Then the medications, like what medications the parents are advised to give at home is mainly the symptomatic medications like antipyretics, paracetamol if the child is having fever, nasal decongestants if the nostrils are blocked, then anti-cough medications, that too if the child is having persistent cough. And warm saline gargles or betadine gargles are advised if the child is old enough, that is school age or adolescent children. That if the child is having sore throat. Then regarding diet, the parents can give warm food or feeds as per the child's regular dietary pattern and nutritious food as advised. And if the child is on breastfeeding, they can continue the breastfeeding. And hydration they need to maintain, that is more important. Then hygiene. Both the parent and the child frequently they should wash hands with soap and water for 40 seconds, or they can even make use of alcohol based hand sanitizer. And the surfaces of the room where the child is often touching, that should be disinfected with 7% Lysol solution. And regarding mask, the face mask, like they should discard after 8 hours or earlier if it becomes wet or soiled. And before discarding, they should soak this mask in 1% sodium hypochlorite solution for 20 minutes. Then they should discard. Then regarding fluids, this is an advice like for 0 to 6 months, 700 ml per day. That is like only if the mother gives breastfeeding, that is enough. Then 7 to 12 months up to 800 ml. So that includes complementary feeds along with the breast milk. Then 1 to 3 years, 1300 ml, and 4 to 8 years, 1700 ml. That includes all like water, milk, juice, other beverages, what all child takes, including all that should constitute to this amount. Then in case of children from 9 years and above, they can go up to from 9 to 13 years, 2400 ml per day. And from 14 to 18 years, 3300 ml per day. So this can be educated to the parents, and this hydration the child should maintain when it is at home. And along with that, they also should observe warning signs or red flag signs like persistent high fever that is more than 100.4 degree Fahrenheit, then lethargy or drowsiness, poor feeding in infants, rapid breathing, oxygen saturation less than 94%, chest indrawing, bluish discoloration of body or cold extremities. If any of these symptoms are found, then immediately they can call to their pediatrician and they can take, as per their advice, they can ship the child to the hospital. Then if at all there are primary contacts, that is if the child is positive, the mother or the father who is taking care of the child will be primary contacts. So they should be tested after 7 days of their last exposure, and they can stop their quarantine after 10 days of onset of symptoms in case of mild disease and 20 days in case of severe disease. So this is management of child during, if the child is at home in mild cases. So as I already said, if the child is having comorbidities where there is no access to healthcare facilities, those kind of children are admitted in the hospital. So if they are admitted in the hospital, we need to, monitor the signs and symptoms, that is like vital signs, oxygen saturation, loose stools, and urine output. So, and care is symptomatic supportive care, like monitoring vital signs forthourly, and administering antipyretics, that is paracetamol 10 to 15 mg per kg per dose, 4 to 6 hourly, depending on the fever severity. The nasal decongestants, antitussives, then warm saline gargles. Then diet, like as already I said, warm feeds and hydration need to be maintained. And in case of prolonged fever, that is if the child is having continuous fever that is more than 3 to 4 days, then we should send blood for investigations like CBC with absolute lymphocyte count, CRP, urine routine blood culture, MP and dengue serology, and chest X-ray. Then along with that, we also need to monitor for these red flag signs. There are 10 red flag signs, like what all we have informed to the parents. Along with that, poor feeding in infants, rapid breathing, this is age-based again. The nasal flaring and grunting, suprasternal or subcostal retractions when the child is breathing, any altered sensorium, any episodes of seizure, then hypoxia, that is oxygen saturation 90 to 94%, or peripheral cyanosis. Then rapid breathing, that is, as I said, age-based, that is less than 2 months, more than or equal to 60, 2 to 12 months, more than or equal to 50 per minute, 1 to 5 years, more than or equal to 40 per minute, and more than 5 years, that is more than or equal to 30 per minute. If we are seeing, it is also said like when you are counting, we have to remember that they should be counted for 1 full minute. And if the child is an infant, then they should keep their hand on the abdomen, because the respirations are mainly diaphragmatic. So they can keep their hand on the abdomen and count the respirations. It should be counted for 1 full minute. And it is also said like once if it is done, then they should not get panic. Again, like 2 to 3 times they should count, and then they should report to the pediatrician. So that is about the mild cases. Then coming to the moderate cases. In the moderate cases, the child will be presented with the symptoms like fast breathing, like what already I've said, that is age-based. And then presence of hypoxia, that is saturation 90 to 94% on room air. So this kind of children will be admitted in the hospital, and they'll be admitted in COVID-19 ward. So what assessment we have to do? Again, vital signs and oxygen saturation. And we should start oxygen 4 liters per minute if child is having, saturation is less than 94%. And monitor for vital signs and hydration of the child 2 to 4, second to 4th hourly. And get an IV access and administer IV medications and fluids as advised. And arrange for chest X-ray, and also for the lab investigations like CBC, CRP, liver and the renal function tests. And the most important thing here is we can perform awake proning. This I'll tell you in the later slides how it can be done. And along with that, the medications, if at all they order, like remdesivir, dexamethasone, paracetamol, antitussives, and amoxicillins need to be administered to the child as per the order. Then the supportive care for the child here is fever management and warm feeds. And if the child is on breastfeeding, continue breastfeeding. And we need to assist with hygiene and elimination needs. And parents also can be educated on the child. If the child is old enough, you can educate them on deep breathing exercises. And we have to provide proning, awake proning, and encourage play within the limitations, and also psychological support to the parents. Then coming to the severe cases, the symptoms in the severe cases are like child will be presented with pneumonia or ARDS, then saturation less than 90%, increased respiratory effort, grunting, severe retractions, lethargy, seizures, somnolence, severe diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain along with ARDS, shock, and then multi-organ dysfunction syndrome and acute thrombosis. Like what all red flag signs we have mentioned for the parents as well as for the staff. All the symptoms we can see here. So this is severe cases, and if the child comes with these severe symptoms, child is admitted in the PICU. So the main core areas of nursing management when the child is admitted in the PICU are, we can classify them as 6, that is respiratory management, hemodynamic stability, management of pain, anxiety, and delirium, nutrition, prevention of infection, and psychological support. So respiratory management, mainly in that ventilation and oxygenation. So for that, we have to do the assessment of vital signs and saturation and other parameters as per the condition of the child, that is the mode of oxygen administration the child is receiving and condition of the child. So we have to ensure appropriate oxygen delivery as per the method the child is getting and provide comfortable position. It can be Fowler position, lateral or prone position, and arrange for investigations as per the advice like CBC, CRP, LFT, renal function test, PT-INR, D-dimer, ABG, LDH, ECG, echo, CKMB, and chest X-ray. And we have to get an IV access and administer IV medications and fluids as advised. And here start with enteral nutrition. So it is advised within 24 hours. The enteral nutrition should be started, and hydration. For the hydration, maintain intake and output chart. Provide oral hygiene. Advised is once in 12 hours. And monitor for humidification and watch for increased work of breathing and oxygen toxicity, and practice awake proning and administer medications as advised. If the child is with high flow oxygen devices not on ventilator, then assess for respiratory rate, rhythm, chest movements, bilateral air entry, oxygen saturation, sensorium, color of the lips, nail beds, and conjunctiva. Then monitor and ensure appropriate delivery of oxygen concentration as per the order, and provide comfortable position and ensure humidification. And if the child is with high flow oxygen devices, we should watch for increased work of breathing. So that is nothing but like use of accessory muscles, respiratory rate, and a visible contraction of sternocleidomastoid muscle. And also we should watch for oxygen toxicity, that is chest pain, trouble breathing, muscle twitching in face and hands, then dizziness, blurred vision, nausea, and we should also monitor ABG values. And if it is the child with NIV, assess for respiratory rate, heart rate, and work of breathing, ABG values, and monitor humidification, take care of pressure prone areas, and provide comfortable position. And here we should concentrate on communication with the child. So we can arrange for video conferencing or with the help of Android mobile phone to communicate with the other family members. Then general care of child who is on ventilator. Check cuff pressure as advised, like 6 to 12 hourly, and maintain in correct safe range to ensure that no cuff leak and reduce risk of aerosols. Then minimize any chest X-ray. It is advised to minimize chest X-rays, that is to reduce equipment and personnel entering into the room and risk of exposure. Then place NG tube at the time of intubation and start enteral feeds as early as possible, and minimize the use of nebulizers. And we should be very cautious with this because it involves disconnection of the circuit and it is a high risk procedure. And we need to cluster our nursing care like suctioning, proning, oral care, eye care, washing, everything to minimize exposure or contact with the patient. And we need to assess for the pain and sedation level, and also we need to implement delirium reduction measures. Then another most important aspect here is prevention of ventilator associated pneumonia. So for this, we need to elevate the head end, that is up to 30 to 45 degree, and give oral care, that is once in 12 hours with chlorhexidine mouthwash, Then perform subglottic suctioning. The recommendation is here closed suctioning. Then assess the need for extubation, means as early as possible. When the child is recovering, we can extubate and use new ventilator circuit for each patient and change the circuit if soiled or damaged and avoid aerosol generating procedures because that increases the risk of healthcare workers getting the infection. So these aerosol generating procedures are like how we can avoid are like following closed suction, then video assisted laryngoscope for intubation, then change ET tube or ventilator circuit only if malfunctioning, otherwise we should not change. Change head and moisture exchanger every day, then avoid normal saline instillation, avoid brushing and flushing during oral care, cautious oral suctioning, avoid suctioning during extubation, and use of bacterial filters in the expiratory limb, and then MDI over nebulization means no nebulization. Instead of that, you can use MDI. Then use of HME instead of humidifiers. So that is about the care of, the respiratory management of the child. Then the second area is hemodynamic stability. So assess for signs and symptoms of dehydration, monitor TPR, BP, and capillary refilling time, serum lactate levels, and hourly output, prevent central line associated bloodstream infections, and also measures to prevent DVT. Then the third area is management of pain, anxiety, and delirium. Administer analgesics and sedation as advised, assess pain and sedation level, and implement delirium reduction measures. So this we can use both pharmacological and non-pharmacological measures to reduce delirium. Then the fourth important area is nutrition of the child. So here in the critical illness, there is, due to critical illness, there is increased protein catabolism, which results in wasting of endogenous protein stores. And this poor nutrition leads to prolonged ventilator dependency and prolonged ICU stay and heightened susceptibility to nosocomial infections and multi-system organ failure. And there is also increased mortality with mild, moderate, or severe malnutrition. So here the goal is provision of adequate nutrition with adequate calories, proteins, fat via enteral or parenteral route. And the nutrition related to nutrition, which is start enteral nutrition within 24 hours or as advised, and assess bowel sounds, confirm NG tube placement when you are, especially when we are practicing proning, and NG aspiration Q4 early, and administer proton pump inhibitors as order. So this is the recommendation for children when they are critically ill. As per this recommendation, we can provide nutrition for the child. Then the next area is most important area is prevention of infection. So here we need to follow appropriate hand hygiene. We should use N95 mask and adequate PPE during aerosol generating procedures, and use of negative pressure rooms if possible, and use of HEPA filters and adequate PPE. Then the final important thing is communication. Communication with parents or caregivers. So we should be very clear and we should communicate only the facts when we are communicating with the parents. And with the children, as much as possible, we can use both verbal and non-verbal means of communication, and we can arrange for video conferencing or Android mobile phone to communicate with other family members. And the another important area is family visits during hospitalization. So it is suggested to follow the 5S strategy, that is stimulate family visits. Means we should encourage the family members, that's mainly the parents, to visit. And we should have written information for families in a stand like a protocol. And we should set up routine telephone calls with the family. And even we can solicit family members' creativity, like use of video, virtual PICU visits, or diaries, text messages. All this we can encourage the parents to adopt. And even like if a hospital is more creative enough, they can start up a different communication model. Then maintaining child and family centered care, which is one of the core principle of pediatric nursing. Like if child is COVID positive, parents will be the contacts. So we need to use extreme caution when we are asking the parents to visit until they are proven COVID-19 negative. And we have to provide instruction daily for them, like before entry into the patient care area on hand hygiene, limiting surfaces touched, and use of PPE according to the local policy. And we should minimize the child and family fears of health professionals in PPE through age and developmentally appropriate explanations. Means they may be scared by looking at us when we are in PPE, they may not be able to identify who are we and all. So we should be able to manage them. And another important thing is we should encourage therapeutic play within the limitations. Then child and family centered care, reassure the child and involve parents in the care of the child as much as possible, wherever it is possible for us to involve the parents, and use available technology like teleconferencing to maintain the communication. Then restrict visitors to only the parents or primary caregivers and don't allow sibling visits. Then inform the parents that they must alert the staff immediately if at all anybody is becoming COVID-19, developing COVID-19 symptoms, or if they're becoming positive, so that we can stop their visits and they can self-isolate themselves. Then coming to the psychological support to the parents and children during hospitalization, this like when the child is hospitalized, child will be very much stressed, and we should help them to voice out their concerns, feelings, and any worries. And we can even also ask them what they know about coronavirus and what they understand, and we should give correct facts to them, and we can clear off any misconceptions and ask the questions and provide simple and calm responses. Then for children, we can use even creative means to explain the information in a simple way. And our responses should be tailored to their age and developmental stage. And we can encourage them to verbalize their feelings and worries. It can be in the oral form, or even they can write and show us like what is exactly their worry. And we can give necessary explanation before procedure to enhance coping of this child. And we should not express our concerns in front of the children or parents, because their stress will be increased with that. Then for the parents, they are worried about their own health as well as their family, because and especially if anybody is there with the high risk in their families. So clear explanation should be given to their queries, and we should be working as a strong advocates to enhance parents and family coping with better coordination and collaboration with multidisciplinary team. Then, as already I said, the most important care, like most important nursing measure, what we can use here in this COVID-19 pandemic is awake proning. Awake proning is a process where we are turning the patient with precise, safe motions from their back onto the abdomen, mainly to improve the lung expansion and oxygenation, and to delay intubation or avoid ICU admissions. And the positions what we are providing here to the child is first the child will be in right lateral, left lateral, upright, and again in prone position in a cyclical manner. And in each position, we should maintain the child at least for 30 minutes. Then the preliminary assessment, what we have to do before doing this awake proning is ensure that the child had meals 1 hour before, and check the vital signs and oxygen saturation. Saturation should be more than or equal to 92% at each position change. And we need to monitor vital signs saturation 5 minutes before and after proning, and also at every position change. So next, coming to the another important aspect in care of children is breastfeeding. So women, the mothers who are COVID-19 positive, they'll have high amounts of antibodies to the virus in their breast milk, so which coat the inside of infant's nose and mouth, helping to block infection. So it is advised to give breastfeed to the mother, even if the mother is COVID positive, and the methods what she can adopt are like direct breastfeeding, or even she can express and give the milk to the baby. So here are like few scenarios where the mother is COVID positive, or she's a primary contact of any other COVID positive patient, and the baby is negative. So here the advice is she can continue breastfeeding and preferably expressed breast milk. She can wash hands before and after touching the infant, or if at all she is using any pump to express the breast milk, and she should avoid using a pump that is shared by others. She can wear mask during breastfeeding or pumping, and she can follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning and using of the pump. And if possible, this pumped breast milk should be fed to the infant by any caregiver who is healthy and not a high risk of COVID-19 infection, and who belongs to the same family. Then another scenario where baby is positive or primary contact and the mother is negative. Here also same like the previously what I said, like express breastfeeding she can continue. And the wearing mask here, like because of the danger of suffocation, mask should not be put on children younger than 2 years. And the rest is same like the previous one. Mother can wear mask and take all other precautions and express and give the milk to the child. Then another thing area is immunization. Children should continue to receive all the vaccines recommended as per the schedule. In case of newborn, if the newborn is normal, means the newborn is asymptomatic and the newborn is like no symptoms at all or negative, then as the routine hepatitis B at birth or within 24 hours, BCG vaccine at birth or as early as possible, and OPV at birth or as early as possible before 15 days of birth. So if the baby is positive, then hepatitis B vaccination at the time of discharge or less within 15 days, then BCG at the time of discharge and OPV at the time of discharge and within 15 days. So this is an immunization schedule they can follow during this COVID pandemic infection. Then care of term and preterm neonates born to COVID positive mother. So here again, WHO recommends not separating babies from their mothers, and they can practice KMC for preterm babies and breastfeeding. Because why this is means like the separation carries more risks compared to the benefits. So recommended to practice respiratory hygiene during feeding and perform hand hygiene before and after contact with the child, and routinely clean and disinfect surfaces with which the symptomatic mother has been in contact. So that is about the care of children, the care of family, and in special cases, how we can take care of children. Now coming to the staff, like we as such, what is the psychological impact on us due to this COVID-19 pandemic? So we may have like fear of risk to ourselves and our families, and guilt when we go back home, like we may spread to our family members. And as we know, we have shortage of pediatric trained nurses, taking care of pediatric children. Staff may be deployed from their usual environment, and they may have to work with the new people, and they'll have stress associated with the limited parental visitation, and then guilt about not delivering the usual standard of care, and they may have increased fatigue from working in PPE and increased stress and fatigue as like if at all the pandemic continues. So what measures we can suggest for well-being of staff during this COVID-19 are like effective leadership and clear and frequent consistent communication, effective task allocation for providing safe care, then adequate PPE and frequent breaks from PPE, and debriefs can be conducted in case of deaths or distressing events. And then staff room, wherever they're going for the rest, it should be a safe psychological space. Means it should be in such a way where they can relax when they go for the break. Then check in and out with colleagues and welfare. It's like, are you okay? Like the supervisors or like colleagues can go and talk to them. How are you? Then reinforce success and thank the team, and ensure days of like breaks and say thank you to the team, and encourage talking and don't shut down humor. Means if they are coming to express any of the worries or feelings, that should be encouraged. They should not shut down. I mean, they should not tell them to keep quiet. So what are the challenges that ahead of us now are? Main one is staffing. Then secondly, training of staff to equip them with the pediatric care protocols and demands from administration and government. Then management of PPE, then adherence to infection control protocols by all categories of healthcare workers, then fear and anxiety among healthcare workers, and stigma associated with infection, then discomfort with the use of PPE, and allocation of limited resources like beds and oxygen supply, an ethical dilemma. So these are all the challenges which are ahead of us, and we need to plan and take care of these challenges. So as a conclusion, I can say nurses play a vital role in the care of critically ill children with COVID-19. Early recognition of signs of deterioration and timely management help to improve outcomes. And we need to continue to be active learners, adaptive and flexible while serving as trusted sources of information for families with children. So that is about the care of children, nursing care of children with COVID-19. And these are a few of the references that I have referred with. Any queries or welcome? Then I would like to thank once again the principal and my department colleagues for helping me in preparing this content.
We have some question in question and answer session, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll check.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, one question. Can parents stay with child at hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what it is already said. Parents are allowed to stay with the child in the hospital, and the hospital can prepare a protocol like what PPE that they should wear and how they how many. I mean, who can stay with the child? It is not like on rotation. They say only one person who is healthy can stay with the child with by following the protocol what is prepared by the hospital and with the PPE what is given in the hospital. So those instructions they have to follow. That's what I explained. And if at all they are found positive, that they should inform immediately to the staff.
Participant, any question you can ask with ma'am. Ma'am, one more question, ma'am.
Only one is seen here.
Ma'am, can awake proning done for all age group?
Yeah, awake proning can be now, as of now, the recommendation is for older children. Consider awake proning in older children. But the protocol, what they have prepared, the protocol, what is available now, there they are saying in the mild cases and moderate cases, and in the severe cases with caution. There we can take the help of respiratory therapists or physiotherapists because to maintain the position along with the ventilation and ET tube and all. There also, if we get the help of those people, there also with caution we can practice awake proning.
Participant, is there any question you can ask directly to ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Said with only two question we had. We are discussing
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful session, and then it was informative also. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Let us stay safe, stay healthy, and stay together to fight this third wave. Thank you all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. With This we come to the end of the session, today's webinar. So we have completed our three sessions. That is, session one is identification, prevention, and management of COVID-19 in children. Second session was psychological aspect of children. Third session was nurses' role during pandemic. So this aspect we are going to train all the pediatric nurses to face the consequences or challenges during third wave. I would like to thank all the participants for your continuous support and then participating in the webinar. Then I thank our respected principal ma'am choosing this topic and for valuable suggestions. Then I thank Dr. G. Balamurugan sir for his technical support. Then I thank Ms. Ramya for her continuous help and support for this webinar. Then I thank each and everyone in our department for their support and help. Thank you, ma'am. And then tomorrow we have one more session, that is from the community department. Ms. Arush Shanti ma'am is going to conduct a session on vaccination. That is COVID vaccine. Nurses answer to public queries. Kindly attend the session which is scheduled at 2 p.m. on tomorrow. Kindly attend the session and make it successful. It is informative also. Whatever the queries are there, how to answer to the public by nurses, it will be there. So attend the webinar and then make it successful. Thank you, one and all.